Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the regular meeting of the Shasta County Board of Supervisors for Tuesday, March 12, 2013. The invocation this morning will be by Pastor Perry Peterson of the Crossroads Bible Fellowship, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Modi. Will you please join us by standing? Pastor, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. As we begin, Father in heaven, thank you for our supervisors who faithfully serve this county. I do pray for David, for Leonard, for Pam, for Bill, and Les, that you will grant them strong leadership as they conduct the affairs of this county with wisdom, bravery, and true justice. I also pray for their families, that you would bless them, that they would experience your peace. Thank you for our sheriff, our district attorney, and all the county leaders. Grant them wisdom, justice, counsel, fortitude, that they may conduct the affairs of man in accordance with the will of God. I also pray for the citizens of this county, that they would honor and respect one another, that we would truly love our neighbor as ourselves. Father, I also pray that you would restore hope to the hopeless, that you would give peace to the weary and joy to the brokenhearted of this county. Father, I ask that you would continue to bring reputable businesses to our region, jobs to our community, and a strong work ethic to our citizens. I pray that your peace would permeate every relationship in our city government, in our schools, and in our marketplace, in our churches, and in our neighborhoods. And I ask this in the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the public comment period open time. Comments should be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the board pursuant to the Brown Act. Action or board discussion cannot be taken on open time matters other than to receive the comments and, if deemed necessary, to refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up and or to schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. Our first speaker this morning is Mr. Peter Scales. Mr. Scales. He will be followed by Ms. Ruth Angel. Good morning.
Good morning to you all. Surprise, I'm here to talk about water. My comments aren't directed with the two new supervisors. This water deal goes back many years before you. And there is no intent of malice in my comments or nastiness or anything. They're just cold, hard facts, the truth. And, you know, it's been a very unpleasant 8 years for me and 7 years for the Elk Trail Water Association. What brings me here today is last Wednesday on March the 6th, we had a CAB meeting, and for the new board members, some people actually do like me and I'm on the board out there, and some people actually like what I'm trying to do out there with accountability and efficiency. So at the board meeting there, and there's a lot of flack going on at the moment, everyone's, you know, trying to save their butts over this $200,000 mistake, which I put on with due respect, Mr. Minturn. Anyway, so, you know, the meetings are good and we talk and we're pretty frank there. And Al Cathy there for the last couple of years is, you know, he hasn't been totally upfront with us. He was good there for a while and I think he tried to do the right thing by us and Minturn, but Minturn's his boss and you know, well, you know which that goes. So there's been a lot of unpleasant things happening. But last Wednesday, he went overboard, he lost his curl, him and Steve Boyd were having an exchange, and then there's a straight, which was, you know, no big deal, and then out of the blue he turned around and Brenda Haynes sitting there, you know, Doug Lamoffa's field rep, congressman, and he turns around and says to her, you know, him and Steve were getting in a little bit, and he turned around and said to her, "Oh, Brenda, don't you have a sequester meeting to go to somewhere?" Excuse me, Brenda, even you guys know what part we've played in this water. The county raised no money for this project. We raised it all. We found our water, we found our own water, and we made this project happen, but it would not have happened without Brenda Haynes. We're talking about a $10 million project here. And she turns around and gets insulted by Al Cathy. I was very surprised, but he acted like a spoilt little kid, and he lost his cool. And I'm demanding that he makes a public apology, firstly to the board, me, I don't give a damn, but secondly to Brenda Haynes. Now, you know, there's been, I want to have I'm sorry Les isn't here. Dave, look, I like you guys a lot, but look, there's been a lot of things happen here that shouldn't have happened in this water project. The thing I hold most against Pat Minturn is he's made phone calls to people's bosses that have supported us and tried to get them fired. That's a pretty grievous thing to do. In fact, from Webster's dictionary, that's the act of a tyrant. We all know about the lies and so forth that he's told us. Well, there's over 4,000 pages of document on this water thing. We can back up everything I say with videos and all that. And you guys have been ignoring us. You won't sit down with us and listen to our truth. And I just wanted to say to David and Les, look, I know you're good men, and you're very religious and righteous and so forth. Well, so am I. But you've been lied to, and you're ignoring us. And it's about time. I wish somebody there, hopefully with the new board members, you'll sit down and listen to what we've gone through in the last 7 or 8 years. I really do. I hope somebody's got the decency and honour to turn around and put this on the table and us meet and we tell you our story.
Thank you, Mr. Scales. Our next speaker is Ms. Ruth Angel, followed by Ms. Dolores Lucero. Ms. Angel, good morning.
Good morning. Peter, I think you left your glasses. Got to make sure he sees. Thank you. Good morning. Today, I'm here before you to talk about, again, some of our objectives, or at least one of our objectives. And today, for me, it's measuring results. And I think everyone in this room really would love to know how effective you're being as a supervisor. Me, I feel like I'm a change agent, but I like to do those with solutions. I never, ever will present a problem without a solution. So what I'm here today to talk about is the public behind you, and how do you measure the results and how effective you are. We know that on 2 occasions, at least with members of our group, the Churn Creek Bottom folks went out and solicited 11,000 signatures. One of the comments made was that, oh, well, they weren't all qualified signatures. Well, you know that the majority were qualified signatures. And had you been able to measure the results or measure your effectiveness, you would have all known that this was something that the people in that district were not behind. And apparently the people of the county did not get behind. With regard to Anselmo Vineyards, it's something that you don't want to hear about or talk about because of the lawsuits. But I have to say, there was another injunction yesterday to stop his conservatory from going up. And for the public, the reason that this all got started and why I'm a part of the Integrity Project was because it just seems common sense. And this is about tax dollars and our tax dollars and how they're being spent. If we polled the public or did an online poll, and we have already identified 500 supporters, we know that they want their tax dollars and the spending of those tax dollars to be scrutinized and for everybody in this county to support the way that those tax dollars are spent. I've been researching each of the counties, the 59 counties, and I've been going in to look at how each of these counties are measuring their effectiveness. Some are doing it through email alerts, some are doing it through online blogging, some are doing it through just in each district getting support from the district and having these district supervisors email out some of the things. So as I continue on with my research in the counties, I look for other things. What are the positive of each of these counties? And all I'm asking is that instead of, these 9 o'clock meetings are fabulous, and people can get up here for 3 minutes and just say what they want to you. But all I'm asking is that you reach out to the public, that you find a way to measure your results by either email, soliciting, online, voting, polling, maybe polling at the town hall meetings, just so that you have a sense of where the people want their tax dollars spent. And I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Angel. Our next speaker is Ms. Dolores Lucero, followed by Mr. Russ Wade. Good morning, Ms. Lucero.
Good morning. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I've been missing some of the meetings. But unfortunately, I've been going door to door trying to get enough signatures to stop the electrical utilities. And then when I got enough signatures, I went to Miss Kathy Darling. These copies are the signatures. As you know, Kathy Darling cannot give me copies of those signatures. Unfortunately, they did. Her office gave me copies, but I requested copies. They did it, and they gave them to me. I paid for them. And they also gave me two different amounts of how many signatures I needed to gather to stop the high increase in utilities. The first one was actually a higher number. They told me I needed to get 516 signatures, which I found out that that's not true. I needed to get 378 because only 3,078 registered voters voted. So I need for the Board of Supervisors, you, to look into this, because these signatures are citizens who are actually saying we cannot afford the high increase utilities. And for Kathy to turn around and send these signatures back to the city of Shasta Lake, which, like I said before, Tony Coates is not an elected, okay? She's not an elected clerk. She's also not appointed by the council. She was hired by the city manager, Carol Martin. So basically, she violated the Citizens Voter Privacy Act. Second, my concern is Tom Paseco. Can you turn this on here? How do you? Is this on? My concern is Tom Paseco. I'm going to tell you something that everybody knows, and a lot of people are afraid to say. He's corrupt. There's corruption in this town. Everybody knows it. He actually sent me a letter to my home, which violates my civil rights, my First Amendment. He sent this letter telling me regarding my public comments, and he sent it to my home. Is the light on here?
It takes time.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, he sent this to my home. And he actually violated other people's civil rights. You can see the letter he sent to me. It's regarding the public comment to you. And this is the other side where he sends it to my home. This one here is where he's also getting sued, plus other two deputies in his office. He's getting sued for violating privacy of that deputy, actually is a woman, who he violated her rights. I am concerned because there's so much corruption, and this has got to stop. And I'm asking for the Board of Supervisors to look into these signatures regarding Kathy Darling, saying, turn me in, have me arrested. Everything that she said was recorded because it's a public place, everything. I will put that recording on the website so everybody could see and listen to what she was saying.
Thank you, Ms. Lucero.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. Russ Wade, followed by Mr. Terry Raposa. Good morning, Mr. Wade.
Good morning. What can I say? As you get older, what do you become? An arrogant know-it-all, right? And that's me. I want to talk about health, because health is how we have a successful economy, country, everything. Let me tell you what I'm experiencing at age 71. I would challenge you to find any employee that can keep up with me in pull-ups, dips between parallel bars, handstand push-ups, strenuous young man stuff. Why can I do this? I got inspired last night because the guy is talking about SAD, Standard American Diet. Did you see that show on PBS? You missed something, because your body has this powerful regenerative capacity if it's properly fed. And when we eat right, we transform our bodies. And what am I talking about? The way a typical person, you just eat salad? Yes. The most powerful food on the planet is chlorophyll. Fresh, raw, green chlorophyll. But I've been eating it for 10 years, and I've been experiencing regeneration in my body. And I got to tell you, it's fantastic. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want it. Old and weak, old and strong. How many pills do you think a person like me takes? That's not the way to get healthy. The way to get healthy is, it's a lifestyle issue. And if this county started supporting that, I guarantee you production would go through the roof. And I'll leave you with this challenge. Any employee you got, I'll meet him at the gym, and I'll give him a real hard time if I don't smoke him. All right, folks. Mr. Arrogant is done. Thank you.
Mr. Wade, thank you. That was an outstanding program last night on Channel 9.
Saw that. Good.
Yes, sir. Mr. Terry Raposa. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
On top of the world.
And not peachy like last week. Anyway, there's a couple of things that Ms. Angel talked about that I think is important, and that is county working with their citizens. And I think that's something we have to start really looking at. For example, how does government work and elected officials work with their people? There was one incident in the Bella Vista area where a particular business owner had to take over for another business owner which he had sold the business to. In getting this business back, there was a problem with a state agency. The problem was not getting resolved. He was trying everything he could to get the problem resolved. For 6 months, he would go back and forth. He would send letters. He would call people with no response. Yet the fee that they wanted to charge and the interest on the fee and the interest on the situation that had happened to the previous owner was gaining by leaps and bounds more interest and money to where it came to a very high 6 figures. He and I talked to our senator, Jim Nielsen. Now, mind you, there's 19 people that work there. And mind you that the community actually uses this store for a lot of things, a lot of different situations that they need to have, whether it be gasoline, food, etc. So it really was doing a community service. In talking to Mr. Nielsen on a Sunday, no less, he went ahead and made a couple of phone calls. His staff worked on it, and by gosh, by golly, within 2 days, everything was solved, and there was communication. And I think that's the main thing that we're lacking here. In the fact, if we're looking at tax dollars and we're looking at how they're being spent and how the community's tax dollars are being spent, the lawsuits we have, dare I ask, how many are there? How many lawsuits are there against the county? Is that public record, Mr. Cruz? Is that public record?
Well, why don't you make your comments to us, and then we'll follow up on that for you.
Okay, as long as the rebuttal isn't a closing statement or anything like that, because I would prefer to rebut the rebuttal if there is one that way. So a statement to the answer to the question I'm good with.
Very good.
The thing is that in looking at this, how can we spend our money better? How can we use the people's money better? The Sheriff's Department's an excellent example. He needs more deputies. I just asked him the question, what could you do with an extra $500,000 a year? And it was a smile, like, yeah, I could use that. Doesn't everybody want more law enforcement? Doesn't everybody want that to be something to where we can help our citizens? And what about working together? A situation where we have with the county, when you talk to the county people and you want to have something done, it's sort of, how can I help you fill out that form if there's something you don't understand? Rather than take this home and, oh, by the way, you forgot this. So I think a lot of it is working together. We will be having town halls in every one of your districts. They will be happening. As Ruth said, there's approximately 500 people that have signed up on this. As what happened at Churn Creek Bottom when there was a 5-0 vote on that particular issue, that I believe is the first time that anything was ever overturned in the county that was a 5-0 vote, that the people came out and voted against it and it was overturned. So I think that what we have to do is begin to all work together. And that's understanding that you work for us and we have to have the respect to know that, and how can we help you help us.
Thank you, Mr.
You're welcome.
Raposa. Is there anyone else in the audience this morning that would like to address the Board of Supervisors? All right, then let's move on to item R1. Board matters. Consider adopting a proclamation which designates March 2013 as Women's History Month in Shasta County. And the proclamation reads as follows. Shasta County Board of Supervisors Proclamation, Women's History Month, March 2013. Whereas the purpose of Women's History Month is to recognize and celebrate the courage, vision, and leadership of women of every race, class, and ethnic background. And whereas these women have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of Shasta County, the state of California, our nation, and the global community. And whereas the year 2013 marks the 165th anniversary of the women's rights movement, which resulted in many rights for women, including the right to vote in 1920. And whereas March is designated Women's History Month in our nation, and we encourage all residents of Shasta County to commemorate and honor women for their countless contributions to our community, nation, and world by learning more about the significant role women have played in history. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Shasta County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims March 2013 as Women's History Month in Shasta County and celebrates a special time to recognize the great achievements of women. And this is signed by David Keogh, Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, on behalf of the board members. May we have a motion to approve the proclamation? Thank you. Is there a second, please?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Terrell.
Thank you. Am I on? Yeah, okay. In 1900, my mother was born. She lived into 2000. She was almost 101 when she died. Not too long before she died, I asked her, because I remember going to the little country school, watching Mother and Dad vote. This is in Iowa. That's a childhood memory. And I said, "Do you remember when you first voted, Mother?" And she said, "No, I don't. I didn't get to vote in 1924 because Father didn't think women should vote." You know how that went down with me. We've come a long way. The League of Women Voters formed the same year the 19th Amendment was passed, 1920, and it's almost 100 years old. The League of Women Voters of the Reading area formed in 1960, and so it's 50 years old and counting. Women's history is still evolving.
Ms. Terrell, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, it's a pleasure to present you with this proclamation. We thank you for all of your efforts. And let me say, at the risk of embarrassing you, ladies and gentlemen, Janet has accomplished much for our community. and she works tirelessly for the community. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Following consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They may be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested person may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and consideration. So we have a request from Ms. Lucero to pull C4, C5, and I am going to pull C9. So it's C4, C5, and C9. May I have a motion to approve? Oh, is there anyone else that would like to pull an item? Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the remainder of the calendar?
I'll move to approve it.
We have a second.
I'll
By
second.
Mr. Chappelle, I believe. Thank you. Further discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So let us move to item C4. Clerk of the Board, County Council, adopt a resolution which approves the Conflict of Interest Code for the MacArthur Fire Protection District. No general fund impact. Ms. Lucero, would you like to provide us with some comments?
Yes, I'd like to know the detail on that conflict of interest. What exactly are you trying to pass here regarding that conflict of interest? If you could explain to me.
Have you had an opportunity to look at the staff report?
I did last night,
Okay.
but I want to hear it
Very
from.
good, very good. All right. Who is going to address this? Mr. Cruz?
I'd be happy to address it.
Thank you.
Chairman Kimo. Under the law, the Fair Political Practices, the Political Reform Act, this Board of Supervisors in the county is considered the code reviewing body for certain local entities. One such entity is the MacArthur Fire Protection District. Under the Political Reform Act, every local entity is required to adopt a conflict of interest code that meets the requirements of the Political Reform Act. Once they have done that, it is then submitted to this board for final approval, and that is the action that's before this board today.
So you don't have a code yet. You say it here, it's a code, but you don't have a code number, correct?
This is the MacArthur Fire Protection District's conflict of interest code.
Okay, but usually there's a code for that, correct?
I don't understand what you mean. This is their conflict of interest code, which outlines the requirements under the Political Reform Act, and what they have to do is they identify where there are particular conflicts that exist, what positions are subject to it, and what disclosures need to be made.
Is this a state code that you're following, or this is something that you?
It is the state law requires that every local entity adopt a conflict of interest code.
So you have the original and you will have the new one once you approve it?
I don't understand the question.
Well,
what we have is before the board today.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Move
Pleasure.
approval.
Thank you. Mr. Modi? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Giacomini. Further discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item C5 has also been requested to be pulled by Ms. Lucera. C5 is adopt a resolution to amend the Shasta County Conflict of Interest Code and designate positions, Exhibit A, and repeal Resolution Number 2011-029 and 2012-027. Ms. Lucero, I assume your question is about the same on this one as it was on the other one?
Well, yes, because my concern is that, I just want to hear it from the Board of Supervisors, because my concern that there's so many people out there have I don't know if they have the knowledge or they know that, if you hold multiple positions, it becomes a conflict. So my concern is that conflict when you're holding multiple positions, even though you don't run for the position, but when you're appointed, when you have a conflict between those positions, that's my concern as a citizen, because I will bring that out if there's a conflict in regarding who gets appointed.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Lucero. I think we'll ask Mr. Cruz if, do you understand the question, Mr. Cruz? Because we can ask for a clarification.
Well, I understand Ms. Lucero's general concern that perhaps people may have maybe appointed to two separate positions, and the law does allow that under certain circumstances, and where there are issues, of course, and they're brought to our office's attention, then we will advise the board appropriately if there aren't any particular issues that exist. This particular item, though, is in connection with the Political Reform Act, as was the previous item, where the board is required to adopt for its own county employees which ones are subject to the county's conflict of interest code, and requires that they disclose certain financial information that they have, and also requires that they avoid from being involved in decisions that impact them personally financially.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Chappelle, followed by Mr. Modi.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to talk about the previous, the C4. Maybe there's some confusion there with Mr. Lucero, but it seems like to me, and I'm going to direct this to you, Ruben, there wasn't a code for conflict, to be able to handle conflict previously, right? And now they have to have a code, so there wasn't an original code. Or if the original code was there, it wasn't. It doesn't work anymore.
I can't comment. If my recollection is correct, the MacArthur Fire Protection did not have a code before, and so they needed to have something in place under the law.
Right, that's what I was trying to say. So they didn't have one. So now they're just establishing that right now to be correct under the law. So now they have an establishment of somebody who wants to file something that they have a conflict of interest. Thank you.
Supervisor Modi.
Yeah, just one clarification from Mr. Cruz. People who are appointed or elected to multiple positions may have a conflict, but it's not automatic that they have a conflict.
Oh, no, it's certainly not automatic.
I just want to make sure that was sort of suggested that you're automatic have a conflict, but you may or may not.
Yes, no, it's certainly not automatic.
Yeah.
No, it depends upon a review of the particular positions, and the law, unfortunately, is somewhat complex in that area. But no, it certainly doesn't automatically impose a conflict.
I'll move approval.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and acceptance to accept C5. Further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. C9 is an amendment to the agreement with Rick Presta, M.A., LMFT, doing business as Cedar Rose Programs. Mr. Foreman, good morning.
Good morning.
Briefly, could you explain to us what this contract contemplates?
Yes, Chairman Kehoe. I got confused with the last chairman, sorry.
Well, no,
members of the board. My name is Wes Foreman. I'm Chief Probation Officer. Today's request to amend a contract in regards to Rick Presta, also doing business as Cedar Rose, will merely add additional services to his original contract. His original contract included services for polygraph tests on sex offenders and to do some counseling. The current amendment would add Nurturing Fathers program, which is an evidence-based program, Women's Empowerment, which is a best practice, not evidence-based, but it's research based upon what models are there to do work with women that are coming out of prison, and the same thing for the men's mental health and wellness program. And simply that's what this contract is about.
As I read the contract, Mr. Foreman, I was struck by the fact that there are not any deliverables or results identified in this contract. There are a plethora of activities, but no results. And I'm a bit curious about that. As I read the first paragraph on page 2 of the staff report, and I will do so for the benefit of those in the audience. It reads as follows: adding these programs and services will allow offenders to participate in ongoing group programs that may help reduce the likelihood of the offender committing a new crime. These programs may help the offender overcome adversity and foster feelings of hope towards the future and improve functional family environment. So it seems to me that we're kind of spending $86,000 on conjecture. I am pleased to see that the program is based on evidence-based practices. And then the final sentence in the paragraph I find really striking. It says these programs are designed to compel offenders to listen, learn, and make better choices in their future. This is certainly a cutting-edge education if you can compel people to learn. So I have concerns about deliverables not being identified. In fact, one of the speakers this morning spoke about accountability, and that's something that the board has embraced for a long period of time. So tell us how we're going to hold performance accountable in this contract.
Well, number one, all offenders that are on supervision to probation are required by their terms and conditions to attend programs that are recommended by their probation officer. Some of those programs are specifically identified in the terms and conditions. Some of those are later determined by the relationship that's built with the probation officer, and then we mandate their attendance. And so we monitor their attendance and the programs, this one in particular as well, will report their attendance and whether they're going to the programs that they're supposed to. We'll also monitor whether they're compliant, in other words, behaving, participating, those kind of things into the program, and then we monitor the completion or the success of the program. We have the ability, when somebody is not compliant, not attending, not behaving well, to actually terminate or violate their terms and conditions of probation and send them back to court for further review. We could use anything from sending them to another program to putting them in custody if we think that that's going to help motivate them. So we have a sense of accountability already built into the system. With the offenders coming out of prison, the realignment offenders, we were fortunate to have some money that was sent to us to build additional programs. Based upon the tools that we use, in other words, determining their needs, we've referred to them in the past, criminogenic needs, we are now able to identify better what the needs are for the individuals going to the services. And therefore, based upon those collective needs of that group, we are now creating more services, and we have some resources to buy more services. And so in this particular contract, we're adding additional services. Again, some of it is evidence-based, some of it is based upon best practices. We're also building into the contract that we meet regularly with the administrator of the agency. We've identified monthly to meet with them, and so we evaluate how the program's going, how the administration of the program's going, whether or not people are attending and complying, and so forth.
And the program will be offered across the street or at another location?
No, it will not be in the assessment center or the day report center. This program is actually offered in the agent's facility.
Okay. Very good. Further questions of Mr. Foreman? Pleasure of the board concerning disposition of C9.
I would so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Second here. Have a motion and a second to approve C9. Further discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Have a pleasant day. Next item on our agenda is General Government, R2, Administrative Office, Board of Supervisors. Receive a legislative update and consider action on specific legislation related to Shasta County's legislative platform, and 2, receive supervisors' reports on countywide issues. Mr. Lees, anything? Thank you. Mr. Chappelle, I'd like to start with you, if you wouldn't mind, sir, on supervisors' reports. Want to give it some thought, and we'll... Okay, very good. I caught you off guard there, and I apologize. Ms. Giacomini.
Absolutely, Chair Kehoe. I actually have nothing to report myself, but I do have a question for Mr. Lees. I saw that there might be some movement on AB 97 in regards to the long-term care facilities, the concern of Mayor's Memorial. So can we follow up on that and see if we need to take other action? Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Supervisor Giacomini. Supervisor Modi.
Yeah, I attended the Sac Valley EMS board meeting, and just the board packet stuff's upstairs and he wants to review it. Just to let you know that we have been, they've been working to check our response times for our ambulance service, and it's doing well. They're just looking to make some improvements, but it's moving along greatly. And then also this weekend I had a chance to meet with the community at IGO to talk about a number of issues they had out there, which I've shared with those who needed to hear it as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Modi. Supervisor Chappelle?
All right. I didn't attend any committees this week, but I did attend. I was a judge at the, which is the Gateway School District, and they had 4 participants where they had to give a speech on, it was kind of interesting actually, how to bring business into America and establish a better and stronger economy. And there was a 13-year-old there, then there was a couple 16s. One was a senior, 2 were juniors, and 1 was in the 9th grade. And they had some interesting perspectives. I won't probably elaborate on all of them, but the gal that actually won it did a very good job, and she was fairly much on target on some of the needs that we need for our American economy to actually be able to get back strong again. So that's it.
Thank you, Supervisor Chappelle. I attended the Shasta County Mental Health, Alcohol, and Drug Advisory Board meeting the other evening. It was about a 3.5-hour meeting. There were some outstanding presentations by Jamie Hannigan on the MS Mental Health Services Act update, and also an excellent presentation by Maxine Wada. And I have that material here if you'd like to take a look at it. I also attended the LAFCO board meeting, and I must say it was a very active meeting, and a lot of information was shared. Supervisor Baugh is the chairman of LAFCO, and he did an outstanding job. So that material also is available for anyone to review. Now let's go to item R3, Law and Justice. Sheriff, consider authorizing the Auditor Controller to process claims to reissue 20 stale dated Sheriff Civil Wage Garnishment Trust Fund checks in the amount of $31,945.44 that are more than 5 years old. Mr. Lindsay, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chairman Kehoe, members of the board. Mike Lindsay, Chief Fiscal Officer for the Sheriff's Office. The item in front of you today is part of the work that my staff has been doing on reconciling Civil Wage Garnishment Trust account. And we've identified 20 checks that were issued but never cashed that need to be reissued. And the amount of those checks totals $31,945.44. And I'm seeking your approval to have the auditor's office reissue those so we can return those funds.
Mr. Lindsay, I know it's contained in the SAF report, but why don't you verbally let us know why the checks weren't cashed? Well, to the best of your ability.
There could be a variety of reasons why the checks weren't cashed. Certainly, some of them were either lost by the parties to whom they were sent to, and or it may have been sent to an incorrect address and just not returned via the U.S. mail for us to know that it was not sent there. And then essentially, the reason why they're coming to you after 5 years is there was not an active reconciliation of that account during that period of time. And that's what my staff has been working on, to correct that and to provide that reconciliation on a more frequent, ongoing basis.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Supervisor Chappelle.
Thank you, Chair. I just had one question, and that's, you addressed it to some degree. The 5 years, I mean, it seems like that's a very long period of time. I was wondering who's responsible for that. Is you guys have a staff that actually kind of tracks those checks, and after 6 or 7 months, there's no action on them? I mean, I don't know. I was reading that last night. I'm going 5 years. That seems like a very long time. So.
You're right, it is a long time. Unfortunately, the way that this system works, there's 2 different financial systems involved, and the one system generates its own check number, which doesn't match the county's check number. And because of staffing levels and other issues that have gone on through the years, this account was, like I say, not actively reconciled. Right now that responsibility falls on me, and so that's why we're moving forward with this.
Okay, yeah, it almost went inactive or inert. Is there a way to correct that problem so you guys are kind of be on top of it a little more? Because, I mean, in my mind, and this may be totally wrong, but I'm thinking 5 years sometimes, there's a lot of forgetfulness going on there too, and it's hard to figure out where people move. They move in 3 years, so you've got a lot of problems when you stretch it out to 5 years. So is there a way to rectify that check number problem, or is it just ongoing?
No, we have processes in place now where we look at these on a much more frequent basis. We look at checks that have been issued and not cashed prior to stale dating, and so that allows us to do a little proactive work to contact the individuals and to inquire as to whether they received the check. And we can move forward with reissuing checks in a more timely fashion.
Right, thank you very much.
I'll move approval.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second under discussion. I'd like to approach it from the other side. As a follow-up to Mr. Chappelle's observations, in looking at the display here, I see there was an amount for Nielsen and Kennard for $12,337, and another for Nielsen and Kennard for $5,455. So they're entitled to approximately $18,000. How can they let that go for 5 years and not approach us and say, where's our money?
Well, certainly, that is a question that I've asked also. And there is a certain amount of responsibility that they, being a fiduciary for the individuals for whom they're collecting funds, they also have not taken care of looking at their books and making sure that they're receiving the funds that they should. However, these checks are intermittent, and it depends on when wages are garnished, when wages are available. And so Nelson and Kennard may not have had knowledge that these checks were issued. What we believe has happened with those is they went to their facility and they were lost somehow in the process. But without a communication from us saying, hey, we show this check as not having been cashed, then they may not have the knowledge to even look for it.
When you look at the display, most of these are with Nelson and Kennard. So if you did the total, it's they have the majority of the money out of the $32,000 figure.
That's correct.
We have, Mr. Lindsay, a question from Ms. Lucero. So at this time, I would invite her to come forward and pose her question to you.
I just, listening to that, I wasn't planning to come up here, but listening to that, it's like, this is the taxpayers' money. I mean, if I can do that to anybody and say, well, you know what, for 5 years I didn't get paid, here's my invoice here, now you need to pay me because I didn't cash that check. I mean, where is the hard copy and the information to go ahead and resubmit new checks to these people? I mean, it's like we just take their word for it that for 5 years. I can understand 1 year, maybe a couple months, but 5 years, that's a red flag. We have a problem. And if we are ready to just go ahead and, get the rubber stamp and stamp it and say, okay, you made a mistake for 5 years. Let's just go ahead and make the checks. I think we can't afford to make those kind of mistakes. We don't have that kind of money to be throwing out because the citizens are the ones who are actually sacrificing because that money belongs to the people. And if you just go ahead and rubber stamp it, you're mismanaging their funds. I mean, we need more evidence. I mean, we can't just approve that. We need more documentation. Where did it go wrong? Where's the rest of the information after 5 years? God, that must be nice to be able to come over here to the Board of Supervisors and ask for another new check after 5 years' mistake.
Thank you, Ms. Lucero. Mr. Lindsay, I think there may be value in providing a supplemental explanation of the genesis of this money. Perhaps Ms. Lucero is of the mind that it's general taxpayer money. And let's see if we can clarify that a little bit.
The Wage Garnishment Trust Fund is essentially funds that have been garnished from individuals, debtors, who have a judgment against them by a creditor. So an example of this might be somebody that went to a furniture store and purchased furniture on credit and then never paid. So the furniture store went to the court and received a judgment for the money that they're owed. And so those items will go to our Sheriff's Civil Division, and they will attempt to collect for the creditor who is owed those funds. And this account, as stated in the report, has roughly about $1 million a year that goes through it, that is funds that are collected that are owed to other individuals. Certainly, Ms. Lucero's comment that, we have a problem, certainly there was a problem with this account, and that's what we're working to rectify now. We, as a fiduciary for these individuals, for both the debtors and the creditors, do have a responsibility to ensure that these funds are properly accounted for and distributed. But what we've done in this instance is, while I say there are two systems, two fiscal systems, this does go through the county's general ledger, and it goes through our Ciron system. That's the name of the software. And we have looked through those systems, and we have seen where these checks were issued and then never reissued. And so that is the basis of what we're using to reissue these. And then we send information out to the creditor who's owed the money, asking them, did you receive this? And if not, then they sign a stop payment form on that original check, and that gets submitted with the additional claim that will go into the auditor's office.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. So Supervisor Chappelle.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions on this. I'd have to say, like Supervisor Kehoe brought up, Nelson and Kennard, it seems like they're remiss also that they would have that money on their books. And do they know where the money comes from? I mean, I got to wonder, do they think it's coming from a completely different entity, or do they realize that if they're an attorney, I'm assuming they're an attorney's office, or at least represent some sort of a law of some type, they must know where this money's going to come from. Is that correct? What department with this county, I guess I should say, make it more clear?
They know that there is an active collection with the Sheriff's Civil Unit, and then we remit those funds as they come in after they meet certain criteria. It has to be held for a certain number of days. We have to make sure that there isn't an exemption that's filed for by the debtor. There's a number of things that go into this. But essentially, as I was stating before, it is possible that Nelson and Kennard may not have known that they should have received these funds, because we don't send out an advance notice to them saying we're distributing checks in the amount of X today.
Okay, I got one other question. This is going to be a little bizarre, but is there an alternative motive here, where at least a statute of limitation, to where these funds don't have to be paid back after a certain amount of time, and that's why we've got so much time involved in this?
No.
I mean, not from your part, I'm saying from their part, because they're representing the client. So it seems like their duty to get the money and get it back to the client as soon as possible. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I don't know that much about Nelson and Kennard, if they just represent the client or if they're a financial institution that purchases bad debt and then just collects on it. And there's many of those different scenarios that are out there. So I can't really comment any further as far as Nelson and Kennard.
So you're not familiar with the statute of limitation of time, or are you?
No, I'm just not familiar with Nelson and Kennard's business practices to know whether that's actually owed to somebody else or whether Nelson and Kennard has purchased that bad debt and therefore it's their funds that are coming to them.
Okay, but is there a statute of limitation involved with these for collection?
There are certain time frames that the court allows collections to occur before another judgment has to be issued. But so long as there's an active collection, we would continue to do that.
Okay, but it hasn't been an active collection because it's 5 years. So I'm going to be quiet now, but I'm just wondering if there's not another different motive in behind this to go ahead and proceed and get the statute of limitation passed so this money comes directly to them now and they don't have to be responsible to pay for their clients.
They would still have a fiduciary duty. They wouldn't be able to just accept those funds and take it as their funds because it either belongs to them because they own the debt or it belongs to somebody else. And that fiduciary duty would exist in perpetuity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Chappelle. Mr. Cruz, please.
Just very quickly, hopefully in response to Supervisor Chappelle's inquiry, as Mr. Lindsay indicated, when a judgment comes down from a court, it is generally valid for 10 years, and it can then be renewed for another 10 years thereafter, and so forth. So, to a certain extent, the persons who's entitled to receive those monies, whether it be Nelson and Kennard or someone else, will be able to get that money so long as that judgment remains in effect. And it's usually in 10-year increments.
Okay. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay. As long as the client knows about it, correct? Because
yes, I can't comment on Nelson and Kennard's business practices. The 10-year period
goes away, and then nothing happens. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
5 years goes away, and they're going, well, we didn't get any money out of that deal. I guess it's done. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Lindsay, would you spend a minute, please, in talking to Ms. Lucero in case she had other questions?
I certainly will. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item R4 is a closed session announcement. The Board of Supervisors will recess to a closed session to discuss the following items. It's estimated 15 minutes. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, and the name of the case is McLaughlin versus County of Shasta. At the conclusion of the closed session, reportable action, if any, will be reported in open session. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. We'll adjourn to closed session.